Welcome to the Business Unscripted podcast. We're here to share real-life insights, practical strategies, and the honest lessons that we have learned from our own mistakes because, frankly, we have been in your shoes. So whether you need help with operations, accountability, financial knowledge, sales, or maybe just getting your mindset right, we are here, and this is the right spot for no-fluff conversations and tools that work. So grab your favorite cup of joe. Let's jump into the show. Everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Business Unscripted podcast. Dwarn, we are at episode 49. Do you know that, brother? And we missed 1 week, right? 1 week because, I had my baby. But literally, we're 3 episodes away after this one from a year. Hitting a year of these conversations. You know what I mean? Like, it actually just hit me right now. I didn't even realize. I looked at the episode number here. I'm like 49. I'm like, oh shit, that's 52 weeks. And we're doing this once a week.
That's incredible.
That is crazy. You know what I mean? So thank you. If you've been around, we love you. Thank you. If you are a business owner, or maybe you're an aspiring business owner, or maybe you got a side gig and you just don't, you're facing some struggles, you're in the right spot. Dwarn and I are here. We talk about business. We talk about strategy. We talk about things that we're facing in our businesses on a regular basis. How we've helped our clients, kind of overcome different situations in their business. So if you're looking for a spot that, we don't have a scripted, as you see it, it's in the name. We don't have a scripted sort of topic agenda. Typically in our conversations, it kind of goes off the rails sometimes, because Dwarn and I like to have a chat about different things that are going on, because we learn from each other too. We're here and we're basically learning live with every one of you guys, and we love it. So if you've been here from the beginning, we love you, and we hope you kind of continue to do more. My goal with our business is to impact 1,000 business owners by the end of 2028. We're in the right spot. We're heading in the right direction. We got a lot of cool things coming out, a lot of good things going in the right direction. Dwarn, I know you've got a lot of cool things on the horizon too, man. So I've enjoyed these conversations. I think for those of you that don't know the background, right, Dwarn and I typically had these conversations every Friday morning, just us. And how it kind of came about was we're just like, man, we should actually just like go live and just take what we typically talk about on a Friday morning and share it. And that's kind of where the Business Unscripted podcast came from, because we would have unscripted conversations every Friday morning, and here we are. And so, but thank you. I kind of took up the whole intro, brother, but yeah, man, thanks for being here.
No, it's great. I mean, let's break this down for a minute. I mean, we're talking about the average working week being 40 hours. We've done more than a working week worth of content production over the last 12 months. That's incredible.
It's pretty crazy.
Anyone thinking about doing this, I mean, just start recording an episode once a week. You don't need to be experts. You don't need the best equipment. It can get better over time. Conversations will get better over time. But it's been great. And we've had guests on in that time. We've had great conversations together. There's been times when I haven't been able to make it and you had to go solo. But that's a huge achievement for you, Dave.
Which I feel sorry for anybody that had to watch so many of those episodes. You had to listen to me talk for like 45 minutes, but yeah, man, it's been epic. I love it. I love it.
Fantastic.
Ultimately, it's about hopefully there's one or two things that you all kind of can listen to that you can kind of pick up, implement in your business, and just make a change. Like ultimately, it's a ripple effect. Whenever you make a change, it's not just impacting you. Ultimately, it ripples out to yourself, your business, your employees, your family, your community. The idea is that if you're willing to make a change in yourself, that it's going to have a ripple effect, and it's not just going to be you that's going to have an impact on. So that's what we love. That's what I kind of focus on with my clients, and I know Dwarn, you kind of focus on that with yours as well. So I think there's two directions we were talking kind of pre-show that we wanted to kind of go, and I think the first one kind of goes along, I guess, with that ripple effect, right? And it's the mindset. And I had a conversation with a client this week, and I'll give you some background. I'd love to get your kind of feedback on this, but ultimately it comes down to just being in business, feeling like we always have to immediately accept responsibility for something that might not have gone correctly. And I'll share what I, advise the client after, but I want to kind of open it up to you first to kind of get your impact on that. And, do you find that a lot of your clients, or maybe even yourself, right? Because I've been in this situation, and it's something that is personal to me and I've worked on as well, but have you kind of found yourself being that sort of individual in the past that has kind of wanted to take full responsibility immediately to make it right, or maybe you've had clients that you had to, that you've seen that they've immediately sort of tried to take accountability for something right away, and then how did you kind of change, or maybe you're still going through it? I don't know, but I'll open it up to you first.
Yeah, let's go back 10 years. If I go back to 10 years ago, I used to have a situation where I'd have a client call me up.
I wasn't
Still a
gray.
client now.
I wasn't gray.
And sorry?
I said I wasn't as gray, and I had hair back then. But yes, thank
Oh,
you.
absolutely. I mean, mate, I didn't have this gray either then. Stress will do that to you. No, but seriously, about a decade ago, so what would happen is this client would call me up all frantic and upset and emotional, and they're like, this happened. Yep. This happened on a phone call with one of the team. I've just recorded the call, and this is when we first started out with outsourced staffing, doing phone support. And they said this on the call, and and this and that, and I'm like, okay, have you pulled up the recording and listened to it? Well, no, I haven't yet. But before I got to that point, I would take this. That was where we ended up getting to after a few times. But before that, he would call up and he would just start going on like this, and I'd be like, you know what? It's okay. Let me talk to the team and figure this out. I'm sorry it happened. Let's just figure it out. It got to the point where my first question would always be, did you listen to the recording? Because he had recordings of all his calls. And when I did that, it flipped the switch. He go, no. I said, cool. Do you want to bring up the recording? We'll take a listen together. Okay. Then we'd listen to the recording and go, okay. All right. 90% of the time when he'd listen to the recording, he'd realize the customer had blown it out of proportion. And it wasn't what was actually said to him on a call. What would happen is he would find himself sitting there going, you know what? Okay, yeah, I don't think it's such a big deal. All right, yeah, look, my bad, all good, and he'd move on. Sometimes when it was a problem, we go, okay, cool. What can we use as a training method here to try and improve this moving forward for you? And then we'd sit there and talk it out, and then we'd come up with a solution on the call, so it wasn't such a big deal, and he'd be feeling much better at the end of the call. But initially, yeah, I would take the responsibility. Oh, look, I'm sorry the team did that. I'm really, really sorry. In fact, today, same client, I sent him a screenshot of a ticket that was in the system, and it had the wrong name of the client. And one of his team had put the wrong name in it. It was something I had to work on. I'm like, can you spot the problem here? And he's like, oh my gosh. And he got to call them. First thing he did is he sends an email off to the client in the ticket apologizing and saying that he was going to look into it. So he's still in that apologetic mode always, is what I noted. And this has only come to my attention now because we're talking about it. And then the first thing he does after that, or the second thing he does after that, is he jumps on a call to the staff member, finds out that they were actually given an instruction, and the instruction was, I need you to send this message out to all of these clients on this site who are on this list. But he wasn't given explicit instructions as to who to address the email to. So he didn't use, for some of us, we'd say common sense to say change the name, but it wasn't explicitly spelt out. So the client, when he went through it, he went, you know what? That's a process problem. I've got a process problem. Whoever gave the instructions wasn't explicit enough with the instruction. So we need to basically fix that problem by addressing our processes. And that was, when I saw that, I was like, wow, that's a big flip from where we were 10 years ago. Yeah. Massive flip. Like, it's all process driven now. And because of that, I was actually quite impressed. And with my client, with the way that his mindset has changed. But I didn't even think about it until you mentioned it just then, that first thing you did was accept responsibility for the problem and publicly go and tell the client, my bad, I'll take ownership of this. I'm apologizing now. I will fix it. Right. And I never even thought about what that's like. You'd think that that's like, yes, I'm going to be the savior. I'm going to go in and try and save this client and save the situation. Whereas maybe the best solution is find out what happened first, then go and explain what has happened. Go, hey, look, just giving you a heads up. Sorry for the typo on that last email. The team got into a copy paste mode, forgot to change the name on the email. We sent the same message out to 15 accounts. Apologies. We're going to be more mindful not to.
Well, I'm curious. Did the instruction come from internally, or did the instruction come from like one of their clients and one of their like
internal? It was an internal from one of the other team members. So, yeah, it was a little bit of like, in my opinion, there's a little bit of common sense could have been applied at the point to solve which would have solved the problem.
Right. It's definitely a coaching moment for sure. There's definitely opportunities that can be done.
Exactly. And that was addressed by him on the call to the staff member, which was fine. But yeah, so there was definitely some accountability in place there.
Right. And I think ultimately, so, the biggest thing that you can do as a business owner, as you said, you kind of just pointed out, and the benefits of taking a step back. And this is whether you're a business owner or you're a manager, leader in any sense, is when something goes awry or when something doesn't go as expected and you've been given bad news or you've been giving an update that maybe is behind schedule or whatever, the first thing you can do is to take a minute and pause, and if you can do that, you can reset your mind, because ultimately the first 3 to 5 seconds after response, and if you give into that first initial reaction, is always going to be typically negative. And you're not going to be grounded in, right, like self-awareness. And so you're immediately going to jump in and you're going to be like, oh my God, why did this happen? And it's just going to go down the rail and it's not going to do any good. And so, as my example, as I mentioned, as a business owner specifically, this client had something go awry and they were quick to reach out to the person that they partnered with to apologize, express accountability, and say they'll make it 100% right. Like, just let me know what we have to do to make it right. But when we took a moment and we kind of reviewed it the next day together, and I asked, well, were you made aware that this was the actual circumstance for this project? When typically that's not the expectation. Like, it's not like the norm of what the issue was. And he took a moment and he thought, and he's like, well, no, this was outside the norm. I said, well, did they make you aware that this was going to be outside the norm? Question again. No, they didn't make us aware. I didn't miss it. Okay. This is why it's important to pause real quick. If you let yourself, and in the moment, I used to be that way. I used to go into that. I had to, as worked in executive leadership, had teams. I had to train myself to take those moments to just pause if things don't go my way. And this is where I give advice to people on this: is once you're able to then say, okay, let me take a minute. Did I miss something? And then you reach back out. It's like, okay, thanks for bringing that to our attention. Just curious. Did I miss something on our end where we were kind of instructed about this? And what that does is then now you're not blaming them for not telling you, which again can kind of hurt the relationship.
Mm-hmm.
But what you're doing is you're basically saying, hey, did we miss something? Like, was there a communication error? And when they on the other end now have to take responsibility themselves and be like, oh shit, I didn't tell them that this was going to be different than every other job. And now they have to admit to themselves that they have a part of the issue, and it's not just all one-sided. They now say, oh no, I apologize, right? I didn't let you know. And now you as a business owner still want to make it right. But what you can do now to improve that relationship is say, hey, I get it. Like, no worries. Let's make it right for the client. And, let's split it or whatever we need to do to make it right. So there's 2 outcomes, right? One, you feel like you're doing the right thing by taking 100% of the accountability and making it right for your partner to the client. Well, what that really does in their mind, subconsciously or consciously, is now you become sort of a risk to them, because you're saying, hey, this was 100% my fault. You had no problem in it. I'm going to make it 100% right. Whereas the second scenario that we just talked about, now you actually have a 50-50 responsibility, which really as the business owner who wasn't told, you can't read their mind. So they probably have, as the main contractor or project leader, have a bigger responsibility for on that outcome than you. But by making them admit it and then still be willing to make it right, you've just strengthened that relationship, because in their mind, they've already just persuaded themselves that it wasn't an issue with them. I didn't tell them, but they're still willing to work with me to make it right for my client. You now have a stronger bond. Right. So which sort of relationship do you want to build with your clients and your partners? Because this was a partner, really. And that second scenario, 99 out of 100 times, is going to build that stronger relationship with your partners, with your clients. I still struggle with this sometimes myself, where I want to, like, if somebody says, hey, like, this isn't going the right way. Oh, okay. Like, my bad. Like, what's going on? A lot of times I just have to say, well, tell me what you're looking for. You know what I mean? Like, what was your expectation versus what we talked about? And then we kind of look back in and we look back in the notes and it's like, okay, was it talked about? Me, me and you, for example, I think there's a lot of times, and for me, I see things in my head one way, and sometimes it doesn't come out of my mouth the same way.
Well,
it's a flaw.
it happens to all of us, and I think sometimes we're just too busy. All right,
Yeah.
sometimes we're too busy, and it's like I remember a friend told me one time. He said, "I don't like chatting to people over text because you can't read the tone, and
Right.
tone can be misinterpreted." And
Yep.
I've seen it so many times. Like I've witnessed it too many times now, and it can happen in any form of relationship, especially with business. One thing I hate is I hate when you've got instant messaging communication techniques now rather than email. Email, at least you can take a minute to breathe, reply, rewrite before you hit send, right?
Yeah.
You can schedule the message. Instant message is it's just there. You want to take that
Yeah, and
back,
most of them,
it's
once you
like,
hit enter, like,
oh,
yeah, once you hit enter, it's done. Now, there's some of them, you do have the edit function where you can kind of click edit, but a lot of them, like, you have to, like, do it right away, or you lose that ability to edit that message. And
oh, if someone sees it, or I mean, a lot of these platforms come up with instant,
notifications, yeah.
notifications, right? And those notifications stay there; they don't change even if you edit it. So
Yeah.
what'll happen is they'll show up on a notification, and then even if you edit it in the background, it's going to come up and show the same. So, and the other thing is like they'll
Yeah.
show up as edited, so people ask questions like, "Why was that edited?"
Well, and then
So
you can actually, like, a lot of them actually, you can go and see what the original version was still.
mm,
If you click on the editing, you can actually still see what the previous version was. And so it does, it helps in some scenarios, but ultimately, you know, if you're willing to, like, communicate, I wouldn't communicate with people on Facebook or instant message or anything like that. You know what I mean? I think ultimately it's uh, you should be focusing on email or phone call, like, depending on the person, the relationship with the individual. And so, to just wrap that up, I would just say, like, any opportunity that you have, if something's not going your way, like, don't be quick to react. Like, take a moment, take a breath, be willing to kind of look at that 50,000-foot view and see, was it, what the actual situation was. Was it your responsibility? Was it maybe the client didn't make you aware, and just say, what was the expectation? Was it communicated? And if it wasn't communicated and you didn't miss it, how do we make it right in the future? Right? How do we correct it? And then how do we make the current situation right? By doing
mm,
that, that's going to build up your credibility in the mind of that individual. More than just saying, "Oh my God, I messed up. I'm so sorry." Like, we're going to take 100% accountability. We're going to make this right for you. Like, by doing that right away, you actually kind of reduce your um, respect level, I guess, or like your I don't want to say trustworthiness, but your reliability, I guess. We can go reliability on that. Because if you think about it, when somebody's willing, if they're so quick to take accountability, it's because they think that they did everything wrong. And it's like, oh, okay, is it going to happen again? And now you begin that reliability factor begins to kind of erode. Whereas
yeah.
if you can actually figure it out with them, and then they can also see that they had a big responsibility in that situation too, and you're still willing to help and make it right, you actually build up your relationship instead of begin to tear it down. So,
I'm going to add
um,
something there too, though, Dave.
yeah,
Is
go ahead, man.
you and I are kind of lucky in a lot of senses because we've got each other and we've got a few other people out in our network that we can go and have these conversations when these things arise and get some sound advice. A
Right.
lot of people, especially business owners, they're out there doing it hard. They're doing it themselves. They don't have people in their corner they can talk to try and help them who don't, someone that doesn't have, a hat in the ring with them,
Right.
who's willing, doesn't have any of the win or gain from the relationship. So you've got to have people around you. That's one of those things that we've talked about. It's so important to actually build up a network of like-minded individuals, and it doesn't have to be more than one or two. That's enough. Just someone you can have a chat to who understands the business, understands these that the cooler heads may prevail. And
100%.
let people know, like, everyone's busy, right? If you do get an instant message, one thing you can do is, once you establish what the problem is, just say, hey, look, let me look into it. I'll come back to you. And
Yep.
try and set an expectation when you're going to come back to them. So people just want to be feeling like they're getting communicated with in a way that is, feels good to them, that they feel appreciated, they feel respected. And I think when you combine slowing down the pace, you control the narrative a little bit more. You also manage to get people to help. You can talk to someone who can help you frame it a bit better. And look, maybe, and I might get hit here, but maybe if you don't have anyone in your network, just go and drop the conversation in ChatGPT or Gemini or whatever, and just say, hey, be devil's advocate, be completely neutral in this situation, be Switzerland. I want you to tell me, what's your opinion on this conversation?
Right.
There's no need to, I don't want you to, you don't have to choose to side with either party on this. Just fight fairly. Tell me what you think, and let it tell you. And you may be surprised that the way you frame something, the way you've written something, the way you've responded, the tone you've used, it could have been off and you didn't even realize it. Most fights and arguments I've had with my wife and my ex-partners and all of that wonderful stuff in the past has all come down to the tone that I used, is what I was told. It wasn't what I said, it was the tone I used. And I didn't imply a tone at the time that I
tonality
thought was
is so
wrong.
big.
It is, right? And when you're starting to do messaging, one thing I find is, if you're heavily reliant on AI, because let's face it, we're all so busy, we're trying to do as much as we can, and we might be responding to people and putting out fires in between other fires. You might use ChatGPT to throw a message together. And even if you're like me and you use dictate function, you'll sit there and prompt it with 300-400 words to make sure you've got everything you want to say, and the message you want to get across. And you might go back and forth a couple of times to get it right. Some people might still get offended by the tone that you're coming across with, just because that's the way it's been written by the AI system. So if you're not checking your tone a little bit, whether it's your own wording or an AI wording, trying to get it right for you, that can be a problem too.
Right. Well, and it's another good topic to kind of move on with the first topic, right? Is the use of AI in your communications, and ultimately for me, yes, I have it help, but again, the idea is that you're being more efficient with your time. So having it draft your emails, and then you read it, proofread it, and if it sounds like what you wanted to say, send it. Like, there should be nothing wrong with that. And I think the people that do have something wrong with it are the ones that are truly resistant to change. Like, you tell me somebody who is upset that you like had an AI help you draft your email is probably the same person that hasn't even touched AI, and they have no idea how it can help them be more efficient in their business. I am willing to bet 99 out of 100 people that are resistant to that are people that haven't touched AI, because ultimately, and maybe it's not 99 out of 100, maybe it's 75 out of 100, because there are
A high
people
percentage.
that,
We'll play it safe.
it's a high percent. We'll say high percentage. But there are some people out there too that will probably just use AI, write it, and not even think about it and send it, and you can tell those ones as well. And so those are the ones that, if you're upset with it, I get it, because I'm upset with that. Like, I don't want you to just have AI and then boom, send it. Ultimately, there should be a human factor in it. I think it's Dan Martell talks about, right, the 10-80-10. The 10 is the ideation, and that's the human, right? You're ideating whatever you want to create, whatever you want to put together. The 80% in the middle is that, efficiency piece, the automation piece, the AI, influence. And then the last 10% is the human, again, finalizing, making sure that it sounds correctly, making sure it's packaged right, whatever, and then getting it out to, the outcome. And so drafting an email with an AI after you've, like you just said, prompted it with a 300 word prompt, based on how you wanted the email to go and what you wanted to say and the outcomes and the objectives and everything that you wanted to do, I don't see anything wrong with that.
No, me either personally. And you know what? Maybe one thing I'll start doing is I'm fairly clear on what I want to say. I might use the AI for some messages in the future where I'll generate it on the AI, read through, make sure I get my point, find a more elegant way to present what I want to say. And then I might just use that feature like we've used, but like I mentioned before, a lot of social media instant messaging platforms have the ability to just hit the audio record and then audio record something and send it through as a recording so that my tone does come through correctly, that my message may come through a little bit clearer, and I can actually get that. So I can use the AI for brainstorming, and then once I get the message clear, then present that on an audio recording, which is still fairly efficient. Not quite as efficient, but still fairly efficient.
Right.
But I mean, because like honestly, I'd love to get on a call and talk to a lot of these people, as I'm sure most people would, but time zones, busy lives, there's so many factors that come into it where we don't have the capability to get on a call whenever we need to. I've got a client at the moment, he's in New Zealand. So he's gone from being 3 hours behind to 5.5 hours behind. So, that's how far I am behind him. So, when we have our conversations, that means that we have a smaller amount of time to have those conversations during the day in a convenient time that's for him and I. So either one of us has to be inconvenienced at this point, or we have to find better ways to communicate clearly between each other. So I'm with you. I think for me, I use AI quite a lot to get messages done quickly. I always read what I send. And look, there might be one or two words occasionally that isn't quite right, but 90% of the time, it's pretty spot on. I've gone through a couple of reiterations. I use canvases so I can go in and edit it before I copy paste it.
Right.
And I find it makes my life
ultimately, ultimately, you have to make the most out of the hours that you have, especially if you're a small business owner. Like if you're watching this and it's just you, like you're literally wasting precious time out of your day if you're trying to type every single email. Like you're wasting your precious time. Like you only have so many hours in a day. Like that's the same thing. Like it doesn't matter the difference between you and I, Dwarn, or Elon Musk. He's got 24 hours in a day just like we do.
Yeah.
And sorry. Excuse
Bless
me.
you.
But ultimately, right, he probably uses his a lot more efficiency than we do. Same thing.
We make the assumption that he does. We don't know for sure.
Well, he also has a bigger team too. You know what I mean? And so, but still, everybody has the same finite amount of hours in a day. He's probably, I think, reading a little bit of his autobiography, I haven't gotten all the way through it, but I don't think he sleeps a lot. You know what I mean? He's probably one of those that sleeps like, 3, 4, or 5 hours a day. And here to come out to kind of find out, like he's an avid gamer. He would game like after a 14-hour day, he'd actually go in and game and overnight and then go to work the next day and not even sleep. So, but if you're not utilizing like a note taker and then pairing that with an AI to then create your follow-up emails, you're wasting your time. And that follow-up, right, that reiterates the conversation, whether you're with a client, whether you're with a prospect. That follow-up is huge because now it proves that you've documented your next steps, what you talked about, that you're on the same page. So send it, but read it first. Okay. And then make sure the next steps are what you guys actually talked about. Sometimes the note takers are going to mess up. I've had a lot of times where, a action, which was supposed to be for me, was the AI thought it was for the client. And I had to change it. It's like, no, that's actually my side, because I read it. And also sometimes AI actually, right, gives the step-by-step a lot better than I can. And I don't want to sit there and break it down, because I don't have time. I'm between meeting, I got meeting after meeting after meeting for some days. Like some days I start a meeting at 9 a.m. I don't finish a meeting until 5 p.m. And then if I had to write all my follow-up emails, I'd probably be at the office till 9 p.m. and I would never see my family. But ultimately, this helps. You could be more efficient, especially as a smaller business owner with a limited team, without an executive assistant. Think of it as your executive assistant. Think of it as, do you think Donald Trump writes his speeches as a president of the United States? Do you think anybody that is that high up writes their own shit? No, they have people write it, they read it, and then they said, oh, I don't like this, go back and rewrite it. That's what you're doing with AI. And you have the power, instead of paying somebody $150,000, $200,000 a year, you can do it for $20 a month or whatever it is for whatever, AI or AI chat or that you want to train. No,
yeah,
you have to train it.
I was watching a show the other day in a bit of my downtime, and the term PP next to the sender's name came up, and it was like asked in the courtroom, like, do you know what do you know what PP means? And the guy was like, yeah, not really. And I can't remember the exact wording for it, but basically what it was Latin for stating that you were sending this on behalf of somebody else. So it's fair to say that if you're using like a virtual assistant, an assistant, they could be sending out stuff on your behalf without you even reading it most of the time. Like, especially if it's just simple follow-up stuff, if it's billing, requests for payment for billing and all that sort of stuff. So you're going to have people out there, and they may be using your systems to send stuff out with your signature on it, and you may already. And you might not like the wording of it, and that's something you need to be aware of. But when it comes to AI, I mean, we don't. Maybe we need to put things on it saying, "PP, this was mostly prepared by AI. Please don't judge me on this." A bit like when you remember the old days when people would use a mobile to send an email, and it's like, "This email was prepared on a mobile device. Please don't judge me too harshly."
That's still the standard. Like iPhone, like the standard signature on emails is sent from my iPhone. You know what I mean? And so, that's a good point, because you have to, and it kind of reiterates back to the mindset piece that we've kind of always chat about here on this podcast. It is a mindset that you have to be willing to let go of the responsibility of everything being perfect in your business if you want to grow, scale, and reach that next level in your business. Because if you always want to have control, you always want to have final say, everybody's just going to be looking up to you no matter how many employees you have. And in reality, you can't. No CEO of a big company, even say a middle-sized company of a $25 million organization, has control over everything. Every CEO that I've worked with in the corporate world, they didn't have control over, I would say maybe 15% that they had control over. Everything other than that, they had staff underneath them. Us at the kind of the C level, right? And we autonomously had people under us that then made conversations or led meetings and all this other stuff that ultimately was our responsibility, but we have to let go of that responsibility. And so if you are still in this mindset where I have to say everything, it's got to come from me, that's because you are still in that employee mindset. You have not gotten out of that employee mindset to start seeing yourself as, how do I be more efficient? How do I get more done? How do I delegate in my business? And starting with having AI generate your follow-up emails is the first thing. And if you can't get over that hump, you're never going to get over a hump having somebody do a responsibility you're doing right now.
Yeah, it's very true.
It's step one. You know what I mean? It's like the small step one is being comfortable letting an AI craft your follow-up email that you can read in 30 seconds and say, yeah, that sounds good, send, boom. Step one of many to grow, right, a big business.
Yeah, you're right, you're right. Like I was playing with a custom GPT the other day, building out an SOP generator. And I realized, like, after about an hour and a half, 2 hours in, it was a lot more than just an SOP generator. It had a whole governing system and a scoring system built in and a maturity system built into it. And it was at that point I reevaluated what I was doing and went, you know what? I need to build two of these. A really simple one that most of the people I'm going to work with is going to use. And then we can have this complex one that maybe once they get all their standard sort of SOPs in place, they can go and work on this next stage, put all their SOPs through this and just see how good they are for the long term. But let's get something, because we have nothing, and then we have the right one. And that sometimes is like, you can do that with ChatGPT, where you can go too far, and any AI, you can start going back and forth too much with it, until you find yourself going down a bloody rabbit hole that you never intended to go.
Yeah, for sure.
And then sit there and go, why did I go this far with this? And then you sit back and go, well, that was a waste of a couple of hours today. I could have spent doing something else. That should have only been a 30-minute task. But,
right.
I was listening to the feedback I was getting, and I was, taking it on board, and thought I'd just keep building on what I built. More is not always better. And I guess that's probably one of the things that I'm getting better at is, and I need to get even more betterer, that my emails can be a little bit wordy because I like to get all the details in that I need. And because I use, custom GPT to help me generate them, and I give them really direct, lots of information, like 200-300 word details to make those. Maybe I need to break those into smaller messages. Maybe I need to say, hey, look, this is what I want to say. Can you give me 3 or 4 messages? This broken into 3 or 4 messages or 3 or 4 emails so I can send over a period of a couple of hours, so I don't bombard somebody with everything.
Right.
So, I mean, look, there's different, I guess, we're always learning, and and these tools that we've got available to us, we can go overboard with it. We can go and produce like a 800-word email and then sit there and go, no one's going to read that. They're going to miss the key points. Let's condense this into 100 words and see what happens. And Dave just dropped out of his frame there. So those who didn't notice, Dave is sitting in his new office, which is actually quite a nice setup. So he's got his comfortable chair there now, and he's got his screen set up away from him. So it looks very casual and professional in that new setup. So moving forward, I believe we're going to be seeing him a lot more in that setting. So put a comment in here if you have any, feedback about how great that setup looks, or, things you could do to make it look better. Maybe put a fern in the background, or something to that effect. But let's just hold on a moment while we wait for Dave to come back. I think he might be having some technical difficulties there. So for those who are out there at the moment and considering what we've been talking about this evening today, one of the things I guess you really need to take into consideration is AI tools are fantastic, but make sure they sound like you. Make sure they're not getting too far away from sounding like you. And if you look at, one good way to check that is go and check your emails from a year ago or 2 years ago before you started using AI, and just see what your emails look like, and then go and look what you're sending now. And if there's a huge gap and it's something where you feel just doesn't feel like you, doesn't feel like the way you're normally communicating, then maybe try communicating with the tools a little bit differently. So I'm just going to try and message Dave and see if we can get a hold of him. But one of the other things that we were looking to talk about was Dave's got his segment that he's doing on the show where we're talking about a tool and how he's using a tool and how we could use tools in our businesses from new apps that he's been investigating and looking at. And from my point of view, I haven't found any new tools this week that's noteworthy, but I'm curious to see what Dave's actually found. And looks like we've got Dave back.
Listen,
technical difficulties.
No, well, I would say bodily difficulties, right? So, I guess the bad thing about doing these things in the morning, and I'm trying to drink all my coffee, right? And so sometimes the body says, "Hey, brother, you're going to have to let some of this go, or I'm just going to do it right here in a chair." And I didn't feel like doing that,
Well,
so.
not considering. I just told everyone how great your new setup is there, and how and I just suggested, if you've got any comments or feedback on your setup for this week, it's something we're probably going to see more in these episodes in the future. And asking that perhaps they've got, if they'd like to make a comment, maybe they'd like to see a fern in the background or something, to put that in the comments.
A phone?
Just a fern.
Oh, fern.
Yeah, like
gotcha.
You've seen the podcast Between the Ferns. We don't have to be that controversial, but
that one's hilarious.
It's hilarious. But yeah, You can definitely, so I've put that out to the team, and I just mentioned that I don't have any tools to talk about this week, but I was going to open the floor up to you when you got back if you'd found any tools or apps this week that you thought were noteworthy.
There's a lot. I think what I've been focusing on and with clients as well is, where is there the opportunity to be more efficient in your business, right? Or what are things that you're doing right now manually that could possibly be turned into some sort of app dashboard? And the reason why is because there's the ability, you don't necessarily need to go out and find something, and it's never going to be perfect, but you can build something yourself. You know, with AI tools now, it's so efficient for you to go out and build whatever you think internally. It doesn't have to be something that, it's got to be, where you're trying to sell it to the masses. You know what I mean? Ultimately, you can build something custom internally for just yourself, for just your team, that helps them be more efficient. So like this week, I've built a couple things for some clients. One was like building it right now where it's like a KPI dashboard, and they're trying to get an understanding of, as they grow, what does that mean for their business? What does that mean for their bottom line? So we're building in some, some of the financial side, and then they're on the front end being able to then say, okay, if we grow by this many people or this many people, what does that mean? So we're building that for them. Another one was an internal tool for me. I do some fractional CFO work, and so a lot of it right now I do manual checking of EOPs, right, from the insurance companies for one of my clients versus what we should have been paid. And I have created, I'm about 90% done of it right now, where I'm able to just take the PDF of the payer, kind of receipt, and hey, here's who we're paying you for, here's the dates we're paying you for, drop it into the dashboard in the tool, and the AI analyzes it, picks out the patients, the dates that they got paid for from those patients, the amount, and then matches it against the system and the dashboard of what we should have gotten paid, and it'll tell us, are they overpaid, underpaid, or what's the AR balance? And so instead of me having to go through and do it manually in Excel, I now have built out a tool that already has now the dashboard in it, because now there's a dashboard of, hey, here's how much we're owed, here's how the hours per week that we're doing, and all of those things were multiple spreadsheets. So I was able to take one system that I was looking to sort of automate and make easier, and it actually allowed me a opportunity to kind of combine 4 different processes into one area. And you can host it on your own website, right? And you can make it internal, you kind of keep it private, but there's so many opportunities for you to take things that you do manually and turn it into something that, I guess, makes you more efficient. And it's easy to do, whether you want to do it in Codex and with ChatGPT, whether you want to use Google AI Studio, which is what I've been using, in terms of like the draft. Google AI Studio, and I guess we can, that's the big one, I guess we can talk about, because I started each one of these there, right? I have an idea, you go to Google AI Studio and you tell it the idea of what you want to make, and it gives you, it's like a full, like, it's not going to store anything, it's not going to store data, but it gives you a whole working model of what that looks like. And then the code's all behind it, everything. So then once you kind of perfect it, you now then can move it into your repository and, like a GitHub or whatever, and then edit it and kind of fully refine it, connect it to your databases in the back end and do all that fun stuff, which is stuff that I've taught myself of how to do, because you have to do that in order for it to save information. And so play around with Google AI Studio. If there's something you ever had an idea of, maybe it's just as simple as, hey, I want to have a dashboard that my clients have access to, where they can log in and they can see some information, or maybe they see their activity, based on whatever you're helping them with. Like, you can build a dashboard for that, and you then can even begin to learn how to then connect it to maybe their softwares. What happened to my camera? Just went out.
Signal. Yeah,
my camera is gone. That's not cool.
Is that an Elgato that you're using?
Apparently, but Maybe it
I
just
have
turned off.
maybe I have experience with a client of mine. He's got an Elgato, and after using it for long periods of time, some of them heat up, especially when he's running them in a room that's got a heater. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, that's kind of weird. First
yeah,
time using the studio, as you were kind of saying, right? So I'm just kind of figuring out all this stuff for myself.
tech problems, but we live
Um,
with them.
yeah, tech problems, you gotta love it. But ultimately, understanding what it is that you want to make, start at an idea with Google AI Studio and draft it. And once you kind of understand, like, hey, this is good to go, now you can grab the code, you can download the code, you can use Google AI Studio for API keys and connection. And these are ideas that I've come up with this week that I was able to make working copies, send to the clients for first review, and get feedback and make changes. So if we talk about
That's very
an
cool.
app or a platform, right? Google AI Studio is something I would say kind of get an understanding of, and don't be afraid of it. Um, I'm not a
For a
coder.
lot of absolutely right. And you're an accountant, right? And you're doing
Right.
this,
Well,
which is
yeah.
sweet. One of the things I think is interesting too is if you've got a lot of data and you're not sure how to present that in an easy to read format, then you can always drop that data into like a Google Gemini chat and ask it to review that data and give you some suggestions on what sort of dashboard and what sort of views you could be showing,
Right.
and tell it a little, give it a bit of context. Tell it to, I want this to be for an insurance agency that, management can see what's going on with XYZ. And once you tell it that, it can give you some prompts that you can then use to drop into the platform and start using an AI studio. And then you can start that build cycle from there. And
Right.
it could be something as simple as, and that's what I love about what you were doing. Like, you're taking raw data and turning it into something really cool and interactive, because at the end of the day, people just want to see quick information. They don't
Yeah.
want to have to go search for it. And if you've got something that's got the ability to query and go back and forth, I mean, that's even better. And that's a great comment there from James as well.
The previous one, well, yeah, for sure. Where it's loving automation, this one, right? And here's the idea, right? Is that identify, and this is where we're focusing on, especially like on the financial side, on the maybe the repeatable pieces. Oh, did I lose? I might have lost Dwarn now. But the repeatable pieces where what is taking up a lot of your time, right? What is taking up the majority of your time as a business owner or as your client, depending on what you're looking to solve, and how can I take that and turn that into something that AI can help us solve? And a lot of times it's as quickly as, you know, I need to do X, Y, and Z. Here's the outcome that I want to have. Draft me up an application, and here's how I submit the data. And then from there, once you finish, you can say, okay, well, now I need it and understand, like, okay, let's say it's a QuickBooks client. Now I need to understand the API with QuickBooks so that I can build that into my system so that I can then connect it with QuickBooks and pull their information automatically. And if you can't do that, you can simply say, well, then on the back end, on the admin side, give us the ability to upload a PDF or an Excel or a CSV file of the financial statement that can then be updated into the system that then updates, right, the trending and the documents and all this kind of stuff. And so, and as James is saying, you now give deeper insights into what you were doing manually. Plus, you also can save them time. You know, if you're providing an application for somebody, or you're providing a program like that, and you're taking that off your plate, like you can even do it internally for yourself. Hey, I'm going to save you this amount of hours for your client, and internally you're just going to use it. They don't need to know that you're using it. Let me take this off your plate, and then you can do it more efficiently. And then you've saved them 5 to 10 hours a week.
Yeah.
That's where you can make the impact, and that's where you
Value.
really should be looking at the value. Exactly. What is that value? How can you do it? And ultimately, look, if I say these things because I've risked learning new things, ultimately that's how you're going to get better. you know, and it kind of, that whole AI conversation, you know, other ways that we've kind of chatted about, like, you have to find ways to be more efficient ultimately, and find ways to make a bigger impact and use AI. It basically takes you from one to a 10 person, 15, 20 person team. And so play around with it, you know, get an understanding. You can go, like you said, you can go down a really, truly, you know, tunnel, right? A spiral. So what I would say is figure out what is the basic process first, right?
Yeah.
Get that
Build
live
that.
to just take that extra, yeah, and then from there you can refine it. Then from there you can add the different tools. If you think of all those extra tools and you're trying to build it into the first version, like, you're wasting your time, because now you're adding extra work instead of actually making yourself more efficient, right? Make the first version, make yourself more efficient first. Then once you get the efficiency, now you can start building in all the extra add-ons that are going to add more, you know, value and benefit.
Yeah, I like that. Like probably about 15 years, maybe 16 years, 18 years ago, I read a book, I think it was by 39 Signals, the guys who built Basecamp,
Yeah.
the platform, and they designed the Ruby on Rails development coding,
Mhm.
and they built everything on that. Well, they wrote a book called Getting Started, and I remember reading that on the train on the way into work every day. I'd drive to the train station, pull it up, and I'd look it on my iPad, and I'd be reading it on the way in. And it was great. It was basically talking about everything you need to know about building that they'd learned from building Basecamp, the software.
Right.
And when you're talking there, one of the things I was just thinking of is I probably need to revisit that book, because when I start thinking about building software these days, a lot has changed, but the fundamentals haven't. And one of the fundamental things that they talked about in that book, from my memory, is it's guaranteed your first version is never going to be perfect. Even if
That's
it's
for sure.
imperfect, get your imperfect version out there using it with your core audience. So if it's an internal team tool, get it into your team's hand as soon as
Yep.
possible. Get them using it, get all the feedback, and then improve it based on that feedback. And when we're
Yep.
doing like vibe coding and AI coding, that's pretty much what you're going to do. A lot of that initial feedback, but then you're going to have to put it in the hands of the people who are going to use it to give you the proper feedback, because there's stuff that you're not even going to look at, you're not even going to realize, you're not even going to think about. But too much of the time, and this is what happened to me the other day, I went down a rabbit hole and it was like, I need to make this tool super efficient. I need to make it
Right.
super amazing. In the end, I built something that had 12 frameworks that for an SOP system, which had 3 supporting documents to explain it. And I'm like, okay, I can't use this as a gem in Google because it only supports 10 documents. But I
Right.
can use it in ChatGPT because it supports up to 20. So what I did is I realized that I need to simplify what I'm doing. And sometimes,
Yeah. I mean, think about
yeah,
any
that's going to
version one
happen.
of anything. You know, any
Exactly.
version one, you know, like
Yeah.
an Uber app,
Don't
you
think
know what
it's
I
going
mean?
to be
The
perfect.
Uber app didn't have all the stuff that it had now, version one.
Yeah.
Like, the idea is solve the core problem, and then you can add other things onto it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And listen,
Don't
I'm the same
overcomplicate
way.
it from day
Yeah.
one.
Yeah,
Like
I, you know,
I'm
and I'm,
notorious for
and
that.
this is, I guess, just as much for me as it is for everybody listening, because the one tool for my efficiency, I was like, okay, let's add this, let's add this, let's add this, and I was like, shit, I just have to like get it live. So I stopped adding, and I said, okay, let's actually like figure out how to put it live, right, and get it connected to the database. And then, listen, when you're vibe coding, there's going to be some things that you are going to have to stumble through and figure out, you know, like making sure that the database is connected, and you're going to have to test it and retest it. And so all of these things that you're going to have to figure out. But then once you get it, it's set up. You know, you don't have to worry about it. You know, as long as you have
Yeah.
your GitHub and you have your repository and you do your checks and balances and everything. But yeah, it's kind of for me too, where it's just like, all right, just get a V1 out there, and then from
Yeah.
there you can, you know, make V1.1 or what, you know, V1.2 or whatever, and then and kind of make those changes and those updates. So
And the other thing is too, think about some of the platforms that you like to use, and think about some of the reasons that you like using it is probably because of the simplicity of it. So
yeah,
sometimes something super simple, like the app that you described earlier, 4 different spreadsheets now can be viewed in one dashboard. I
right,
mean, that's not that complex. That's not that complicated in the sense of what you're trying to do. but the outcome is huge. That's a huge
And
amount of
the
time.
input, instead of the input having to go into 4 different locations, right? The input goes into one, and now everything's kind of, based off of
Pushes
that.
in. Yeah,
And then, I could have gone down deeper, right? And be like, okay, well, I got to figure out the API before I even do it, so that I don't even have to enter the information. But it's like, no, like, make it first, right? Instead of entering in 4 places, I'm entering in one, and then from there, then the API can come, later on,
that's it.
And so just try it. Like, I know we went a little bit deeper, I think, in a conversation, this piece about like app and support, because it is a good conversation. But Google AI Studio, if you haven't tried it, go try it. Think of 1 or 2 processes. Challenge today. Excuse me.
Bless you.
Challenge, right, for you guys would be, what's 1 or 2 processes, whether it's for you internally or a client that you're servicing that you're currently working with. What are 1 or 2 things that you could potentially build an app for automation, and
Yeah.
go and play around in AI Studio and develop it as a prototype, and
Yeah.
then test it. Like, that's the beauty of it in AI Studio. You could actually test it by inputting things. Now, once you refresh, right, everything gets reset. So try to keep it simple, stupid, right? Keep it simple, stupid. The KISS method, so that you're not trying to re-enter everything every single time. And what I've also figured out is some of those base things that you want it to keep reiterating in the test, just tell it to hard code it the first time. Like, hey, hard code all this information, and then you can always turn that into variables later. But hard code this so that every time it refreshes, it has that information in it as a base, and you don't have to upload it every time. So
Yeah, that's an interesting point. And like, and just a secondary, if you're not ready to do an AI studio, build an app, start small. Jump on and try out the Google Gems. If you're using Google Gemini, they've got this thing called Gems, which is kind of like using a custom GPT. So go and build a custom GPT in OpenAI, ChatGPT, or try building a gem. And there's plenty of really, really great videos out there on YouTube where you can go and watch and learn how to do that. It's not as complex as you think it might be. And the rewards are huge. We're talking about big rewards. Like I built one the other day where I shared it with my HR manager, and it's now a HR tool. And she's able to produce memos and all sorts of amazing emails related to that memo for client facing as well as internal use for managers to take action, and also for the staff member. So, I mean, it just saved her hours and hours of time for every single case from the documentation point of view. And little tools like that, you may not realize that like these are automations you can put into your business today to help you out with all these great little,
we talked a
problems
little
you
bit
have
about
you
Gems.
didn't even know about it.
Yeah, we talked a little bit about Gems last week, right? When we were talking about Notebook LM, because the
That's
beauty of
it.
a gem is that you can actually connect it to your Notebook LM. So if you're using it, you have a broad database of your company information, your company FAQs, your company products, all of that. You can connect that to a gem, and then let's say you also have a Google Doc, which is live. So, and I think my it keeps dying on me.
Camera's gone.
But you
We can
can
still
still
hear
hear
you
me,
though,
right?
Dave.
Okay.
Yeah, we can.
So, the biggest thing I think would be, that you can create a gem that's connected to a Notebook LM, have it trained, and then when you put a Google Doc into a notebook, that does not automatically refresh. It takes a screenshot of that document at that time. Now, when you create a gem with a Google Doc, it actually refreshes and it pulls the latest information every time. So if you have something that's variable that you're looking to have updated, and you want it to be up to date with the most recent information, turn it into a gem, and turn that Google Doc into that gem, because now every time you talk with it, it's going to pull the latest information. So if you're updating something, or maybe you're working with a team to update a doc or a spreadsheet or something with financial information, build a gem around that Google Doc or that Google Sheets, whatever, because every time you refresh it, now you're going to have the most recent information. Like on a
The
financial
other
side,
thing
you
too,
have a Google sheet that's got the financials on it. Now, every time you upload the next recent financial, you have the most recent information. You can talk to it about it.
and the other thing that I found too is you can actually put gates on these as well. So if you put stuff into Google Drive and run it with permission shares just to yourself, you don't have to. You can then share that drive information to a gem, get the gem to produce the output you want. Nobody can get access to the Google Drive still, and
Right.
when you share it, it comes up and it requires them to actually request the permission to use it. So
Right.
you
They have to
actually
have
get
access to that file, and if it's attached to a gem
exactly.
and
So you
you're
can
sharing it
remove
for sure.
access to people if you need to as well. So it's got a little bit more security. I don't know. I haven't investigated the full security, so I'm not going to say it's
Right.
really the best security, but it's got a little bit more
Well, like
security on it from an internal tool point of view.
and like a custom GPT, right? Like with a custom GPT, once you share that link, it's shared.
Yeah.
You can't unshare it unless you kind of generate a new link, I believe. But with a gem, like you just said, you could pull it back because you don't allow them access to the back end. They may still be able to talk to it, but it's not going to have the most recent information. So yeah, I would say definitely play around with gems. It's going to help you. Definitely play around with Google AI Studio. Um, I'm going to have to play around with my tech here in this office to figure out why this thing keeps overheating and why it keeps turning off. But maybe there's a timer setting. I don't know what it is. So it doesn't. It just thinks that it's like
The,
idle, but it's really not. But yeah, so I think we had a good conversation, man. We talked about a lot. We talked about mindset. So again, don't be quick to apologize or take responsibility. Take a moment, analyze the situation, and figure out, like, was something overlooked, was something missed, did the other party have some sort of responsibility, and then just have the conversation with them, and just say, hey, by the way, like, was I aware of this? Did you make me aware of the change? Did you make me aware of the expectation? Because a lot of times, if they didn't, why are you taking responsibility? Why are you taking accountability? But you
yeah.
can make it right with them. I'm not saying don't make it right, but at least have the conversation so that both parties understand that there was a responsibility to build that relationship up, instead of tearing it down and start to erode it, which is what can happen when you start to immediately take responsibility. So, and then we had a good conversation about AI, for efficiency, AI for your email writing, and then obviously Google AI Studio in terms of like helping you be more efficient. So, Jordan, what about for you? What's the big thing that you hope they take away from the conversation today?
For me, I think just be wary and aware of how you're using the tools that you have at your disposal. You know, some people again, might not appreciate you using the tools that you use in the way that you're using them. So be mindful of that.
Right.
And just because you can generate 1,000 words on an email doesn't mean you should. So
Yeah, I would say,
sometimes
I mean,
pull it
keep it
back.
short and sweet. You know what I mean? Yeah, yeah. I would say your emails should still be short. Unless there's a lot of follow-up stuff, but even still, then turn it into a doc. Hey, by the way, like, here's a quick email. Like, here's the next steps in this document. Go read it.
Yeah.
I think, keeping your email short and sweet, like you said, I think is going to be good. And then if there's anything that you need to share that's more detailed, put it in a document attachment. It's probably something that you could do from there too. So
Yeah,
love it.
100%.
I would say for
What about
me,
you, Bert?
ultimately, I would say definitely be willing to try and be willing to dive and learn, right? And make mistakes. I've made a ton of mistakes when it comes to like learning coding or learning these different things to make applications but you have to be willing to expand your horizons to make yourself a little bit more efficient.
Yeah.
And that's what I would say if you're looking to take something out of today's episode, that would be number one. Number two is obviously the mindset thing. I talk about mindset a lot, and the only reason I do it is because I was there. you know, I was in that negative mindset. I was in the mindset that I talk a lot about. So I know how to make the shift. I know the benefits of making that shift. So if you get anything out of this episode, hopefully it's the mindset, number
Love
one.
it.
So if you made it this far, we love you. If you ever have questions on anything and you ever are like, hey, can you dive a little bit deeper on this? Feel free to drop it down below, right? Put it in the comments. Send us an email as well. Like you can send us an email, podcast@triumphbusinesssolutions.com, and we'll answer them live on the next episode. We'll respond to you, let you know. And then also, if you're ever interested, you're a business owner and maybe there's an educational topic you want to have and share it with the group, feel free to let us know. And there's a link down below as well where you can request access to a future show and share some information with the audience, which is also ultimately the big thing. We want people to share, get information that they can, kind of make an impact and grow their business. So made it this far. We love you. Have a wonderful rest of your week. Dwarren, thank you again. Next week is episode 50, which is pretty crazy. And then 2 more, and we'll have an official year under our belts.
Big
Of this
5-0
podcast.
next week, eh?
Yeah, big
Love
5-0 next week. So
very cool.
We love you. Do all that fun algorithmy stuff. If you got something out of today's episode, like, share, make sure you're subscribed, hit that notification bell, all that fun stuff. And until then, Dwarren, thank you, sir. And we'll see everybody in the next one.
Thank you, Dave. Take care, everybody.
Bye, everyone.